Karen and I are so happy to welcome Patricia Dent, a good friend of ours. Glad to have you here.
I am so glad to be here. This is very cool. Very cool.
Patricia is one of our local business owners, business advocates. She owns an amazing company that teaches new entrepreneurs the ins and outs of the starting stuff. And so you're working with aspiring leaders and leaders a lot. People who are learning the skills of the next level leader pieces.
And because I have the honor of having both of you coach those new and potential leaders, I'm sure you'll resonate with what I'm saying. And when you're starting a business and you're not sure of your market, it hones over time. And one of the things that's absolutely been clear to me is that I'm now interested in and attracting people who have that leadership potential.
Mm.
Right. This is not even if at the moment their business must of necessity be part-time, they're still those potential leaders. So that is a very exciting group to be working with for sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Patricia, we gave you the choice of what you wanted to focus on today. Why did you choose personal mastery? Why that spectrum?
Well, you're aware that when you were holding sessions every couple of weeks to do some testing and basic kind of, let me test this concept with people. I really enjoyed being part of that for sure. But I hadn't seen the finished spectrum. So when I was able to, Karen Colnicott, how do you refer to yourself to differentiate?
KK.
Okay, Casey, great. So Casey gave me the link to actually hear you talk about it, and it all resonated with me. But personal mastery, I think, is almost the gateway for leadership. And so that really did resonate with me, especially as a coach. I use more business mentor usually than coach, because there's so many coaches out there who may or may not have that ability to put their clients first and really facilitate versus dictate. There are times when I feel like dictating, let me be clear. But and if somebody's going to make a mistake that's going to cost them their business, I will definitely say that is not advisable. But so personal mastery to me is that ability to be present and know what's going on and allow some of those. I guess this might get a little esoteric, but I think we're born with, I guess, the ability to understand on a very gut level, understand intentions, understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I can tell you that if you're busy listening, but you're not in the moment, or you're trying to listen, but not in the moment, you're going to miss those signals. You're going to, there are people who say things, but their intentions are otherwise. Their motives are otherwise. Their needs are otherwise. And so having personal mastery, I think, is something that people need to aspire to. And maybe we don't always get it right in the beginning, but that intention to allow others space to sort of understand what needs to be done and to react to what you're hearing, maybe on I guess an esoteric level or, underneath story is really important.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. Do you have a small story around being entirely present helped you make a significant difference for someone?
I do actually. We are often driven by our childhoods and things that have happened. We get into patterns, as you know.
Yeah.
And I had a particular client who was in a very destructive pattern. Her childhood was terrible, which I can kind of resonate with. However, as an adult, going back to those childish kind of acting out because you're not happy, you haven't resolved things, was really causing her reputation to be damaged. She owed a lot of money to people. She wasn't responding and wasn't being responsible. And she wasn't happy in all of this. It was very clear. At first, she would not respond to me, but finally she agreed to meet me for a cup of tea, which is a pretty innocuous thing to do. And I did tell her that, others in my circle were suggesting that I should perhaps send her to collections. And it shocked her enough to be able to stop doing what she was doing, because the reality of, hey, I do owe you a lot of money and I haven't been responsible, sort of kind of landed on her shoulders. But one of the things that is a principle of coaching, as you know, is that you don't just, you know, load up somebody with what you think they need to do, right? You can't do that. So in listening to her, there was a little bit of a turning point, and I asked her if she wanted some feedback on where I thought she was. And she said, yes, I would. So our whole relationship shifted right then. And gently, I was able to tell her that I felt she was not being her true self, that she was acting out as if she was, a much younger and very troubled person. And that if she wasn't careful, she was going to be affecting her, her reception in the place. And then just watched and listened. And that broke the dam for her, because she was incredibly upset. She didn't like the idea that others saw her in that light. She wasn't fully conscious she was acting that way, not fully. And after a storm of tears, which is, of course, a little embarrassing if you're in a T spot in public, she actually said, would you help me? And I said, absolutely. So at that point, she was willing to listen. And it wasn't in it, if I might have missed it, if I were caught up in, the relationship that she'd been trying to build us into. So I think that's one of those places where it could be possible to miss, the signs if you weren't listening. And I really appreciate that, because she actually did listen after that. She asked for opinions. She explored different ways of doing things. And then she became really responsible and addressed some of the damage that she had done in her life. So it was amazing. It was really
hugely impactful. And look at how that impacted the people in her life too.
absolutely both her, her partnership. I don't believe they were married at the time, but her partnership, and not only that, but the other people who, unfortunately, in our world, we're in the biggest small town you've ever seen. And so it is reputation is a very fragile thing. So yeah, she was able to turn that around and has a great reputation. So
yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
So I want to ask you something more personal right now.
Sure.
A very natural thing for all of us on the personal mastery spectrum as we continue to grow over time is we get to the point as we move into next level leadership where we no longer feel as though we're victim of our circumstances, where there's this switch to a little bit more accountability, where we start to see how we created things, even the things that suck in our world. Okay, I get my role in that. Do you remember the moment that changed, that moment where you felt more empowered or even chagrined?
My memory is more on the chagrin side.
I was gonna say, so was mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty hard-headed, and there have to be a few keys. I think my divine team is probably occasionally fed up with me, to be honest. Come on, get this. But I can remember breaking a rule I have and releasing a little bit of information, wasn't attributed to anybody, but somebody recognized themselves in it. That is the worst thing for a coach to do. And it was such oh my God, how could I have done that? And I had to be accountable because there was nobody else. I couldn't say, well, I had a bad day. I couldn't give any excuses, because we're raised where excuses are okay, right? And I think that was one situation where, although it was meant to be illustrative, it was inappropriate. And so I had to own up to that was a mistake. And I had to go back to the people who were impacted. There were a couple of people impacted. And so I think sometimes pain is very helpful in that way. And I've never claimed to be perfect, ever. You cannot, if they're looking for somebody who is absolutely perfect in doing things, that ain't me. But there are certain things that absolutely are part of my value system. And I shocked and was chagrined
Yeah.
that had happened. So yes, not happy, but very instructive.
So from that instruction, how have you found you've felt more empowered since? So what has been the positive outcome for you from that very
Yeah.
uncomfortable circumstance?
Well, one of the things that made me realize, okay, so you do make mistakes. You are not perfect. So there's no God complex here. Therefore, I've been able to take feedback and just,
Nice.
okay, thank you for giving me that feedback. And it very well may be, because it's their reality, not necessarily mine, but it could very well be valid. And do I want to be the best person I can be? Absolutely. So recently I had a chakra cleansing, and and the person who did that for me, who was, said to me, I'm putting on my blue glasses instead of my red glasses so that I can be more gentle to you, because your divine team is not happy. So and what I found myself doing, because I don't need to be attached to am I doing things the right way or wrong way? I need to be attached to learning. And so that's what that was able to do. So it's like, okay, let me know. I'm happy to, and I'll evaluate it, because it's also full of opinion. But yeah, I think that's a really useful thing to be able to do, is to acknowledge that you have shortcomings and listen to well-intentioned comments and advice from people.
Love it. Love that. What's
Mhm.
your favorite way of helping or supporting or engaging your clients in their own growth around personal mastery?
Oh, that's such an interesting question.
That's awesome.
Um, yes, it is awesome, and I'm not sure I know exactly how to answer, because one of the things that I have learned is that I need to respond in the moment. Pardon me. I need to respond in the moment, and it's maybe different for everybody.
Sure.
What's useful for one person is not what you might do for another, but there is a little noise that I've developed, which is not probably what you expect to hear. And
Oh,
somebody came on with some excuses recently, and my reaction was, hmm.
I love that. That's
So,
awesome.
so I have this
Note to
little,
self.
and then I didn't say anything else, because you can sometimes just say too much, even me. Um, so I waited, and then there was the justification of the excuses, and there was more, and then there was truth, because that is a person who ordinarily, if they're not under pressure, ordinarily would understand. That's an excuse. Okay, I need to stop now. So hopefully that's helpful, because it's not helpful to say, you can do this.
Right. When they're going blah, blah, blah. I love that. I love the space that you created, and you sort of poked it and then
Poked
just
it. Mhm.
created space for them to have their own experience. And really that is the journey of the personal mastery,
Yeah,
is our
yeah,
own transformation.
right. And nobody can transform another person. I'm sorry. There's some ego-driven coaching that goes on, where it's like, I have managed to do this for my clients. Like, no, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think that you just have to leave some space for them to realize. And there are going to be people that you can't help in that way, because they're not about to listen. And that's fine. I have been able to learn that I don't push the boundaries anymore, because really it has to happen in its own time, and they have to be able to respond to whoever is going to help them with that journey.
Just poke them every once in a while. Just poke the boundaries. Boink.
If they're done
Just a
yet.
little bit, just a little bit.
See if
The
they're
little
done.
temperature thing popped out. Yep. Ding! Okay.
And if they're not ready, okay, maybe it'll be enough subconsciously so that they'll start to do it. And because this person has been part of our group, there was, it was okay. It was okay.
Yeah, well, you had the basis of trust and confidence there to
Mhm,
do. I love that. That's a great
mhm.
story.
And it was funny too, actually. If it hadn't been kind of, a serious moment, I might have just said, something funny. And I maybe did because, you know, it's hard for me not to. But anyway.
That's awesome.
So I have a question for you, Patricia. So if any of our listeners are out there and they're feeling the crunch of being up against that flip point, that ceiling, that they're not quite in a place where they get that they create their world. They still see a lot of stuff happening to them. They feel like they don't have the control or empowerment they want. What piece of wisdom do you have for them?
Oh, I'm not sure I like that question. Okay. Because if they're right up against the flip point, then they're going to start noticing it, I think, right? I think that's the point. I think I would say this may be unhappy, it may be uncomfortable, but this is the freeing moment where if you can own your future, own your past, own what you do, and you can bear with it, then it will give you those benefits. Then you don't have to you know, be the victim or be captive to all of the excuses that you've made for your whole life. Because I think on a level, we don't like the excuses.
No.
Although, have you ever tried going 24 hours without an excuse? I think it's a cultural norm for us, honestly. You know, I've tried that, and it's really hard to, right. No, I'm gonna own this. So yes, I don't wish that flip point on people, but if they can move past it, it's really a great thing, I think.
It's gorgeous when you can get through it. Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean, you know, you can be easy with what happens to you, right? You can be more accepting. And I think that's a huge relief for a lot of people, even if there's difficulty, right?
Yeah. You bet, especially when there's difficulty.
Absolutely.
Oh, this has been so fun, Patricia. Thank you so much for coming to play with us.
I love playing with you guys. So that's fun for me. And I really have to say that whole process by which you developed your whole spectrum of mastery is amazing. That was, you had the discipline to actually research, to go out and talk to people. This is real, not imagined, right? You're not creating this bubble of theory. You're taking your theory and testing it. So I really appreciate that you've done all this work, because I think it will be, and I'm waiting for the book about that. Is there a book about that in the future?
Yes, I believe there will be.
I believe there should be, just saying, because I think people will benefit from, you know, looking at it in that particular unique way.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've heard this from anybody else. So yay you, just saying.
Thank you, Patricia, for being here for the whole journey. That's exciting.
It was exciting. Missed getting together and doing that, but I think you've gone on to do some really amazing things. So I'll look forward to seeing the book. You can sign me up now.
Thanks, Patricia.
Okay, thanks so much.